Hello. So, first we have top three perception distortions that employees are most likely to be affected by when forming perceptions of a new manager. In my opinion, from everything I've read, I believe the first one would be the halo effect, the second one would be stereotyping, and then the third one would be the contrast effect. And I'll talk a little bit about those. So, when employees form perceptions of a new manager, they often fall prey to perceptual distortions. Then these distortions can significantly impact their interactions, their job satisfaction, and their job performance overall. So, those top three distortions, to go into further detail, would be first the halo effect, which is the tendency to form a general impression of someone based on just a single characteristic or one of their traits. And I believe it's prevalent because employees typically, just from initial impressions, they can form a single positive or negative trait, and that can color their entire perception. Because first impressions are usually the ones that last the longest and make the most impact, just by human nature. And an example where you'd see this is when a manager who is exceptionally intelligent, they might be perceived as arrogant and aloof just because that's their character trait. Whether there's somebody who's, more cerebral or just, has a different way of socializing. It could have positive, they could have positive interpersonal skills, but maybe not, with other people as much. And then the second one is stereotyping, which is the tendency to attribute certain characteristics to individuals based on their membership in a particular group, which is unfortunately far too common. And the reason why I think it's so prevalent is because stereotypes typically focus on factors like gender, age, race, or education, which is, widely politicized and, just prevalent in social media and used for attention getting, and it's just become so commonplace that um, everybody seems to want to form their own opinion, and then they get deep rooted in those opinions whether they know it or not. A young manager might be perceived as inexperienced or immature just because of their age, and you might think an older manager is out of touch because they have more traditional ways. And the third one would be contrast effect, and that's a tendency to perceive a stimulus, like a manager, somebody in charge, as more or less extreme than they actually are because you contrast it with somebody else. And the reason why I think that's so prevalent is because in the case of a new manager, replacing a particular difficult or incompetent manager before them, they may be perceived as much more effective than they actually are simply because of the contrast. It's just like when you get accustomed to something that's poor quality, anything, seems like a step up. And that may not be the case. The standard might still be low, and they might just be settling for the next best thing, unfortunately. So, the reason why I think these three distortions are particularly relevant in the case of new managers, first is because initial impressions are crucial. Like I said earlier, first impressions often set the tone for future interactions. They have the most impact in your memory. And then also we are, you know, exposed to limited information. So employees may have limited information about the new manager, and that's going to make them more susceptible to relying on stereotypes or halo effects to pass their judgments. And then social comparison. Employees often compare the new manager to previous leaders, which can lead to contrast effects. So typically, you're comparing just to your previous experience instead of having a broader, experience to have a better measuring stick. But in conclusion, I think if we understand these perceptual distortions, we can mitigate the negative impacts and foster a more accurate, employee perceptions and have a more well balanced approach. All right. So for the second question, about describing what I could do in a difficult work situation to protect myself from falling prey to fundamental attribution error, I took it in the context of being a manager and having an employee um, that maybe made a mistake. And the way, well, first, it's probably a good idea to talk about fundamental attribution error being a cognitive bias. And that's where I would overemphasize, internal personal factors and underestimate external situational factors to explain their behavior. And the example that really made it easy for me was if they were late to work, we might have the tendency to think, oh, they're probably lazy or they don't care about the job or they're slacking off. They probably slept in or went to bed late or who knows what they did last night type of thing. So I think it's really important to be self-aware and also to try and empathize. And what the way that I walked myself through it was by asking myself questions to kind of get myself to a place to consider them differently without jumping to conclusions. So some of the strategies that I thought about would be empathy and perspective taking. Walking in their shoes. Um, this would be after having a conversation with them and trying to, see what they have to say and see things from their side. Then taking what they told you and having the chance to process it based off of the information that you collected. And at that point, you'd be able to look at things from their perspective and try and remember when pressures and challenges and personal factors influenced your behavior in the past and how that could be the reason for their behavior. And while you're having that conversation with them, you want to make sure you're practicing active listening and you're paying close attention to what they're saying. Not just waiting for your chance to speak or coming to your conclusions. Or jumping to any type of conclusions based off of what you may think that you already know about their situation. It'd be a better idea to look for clues about their feelings and motivations. Um, then I would consider situational factors like external influences. Are we currently experiencing tight deadlines or resource constraints and organizational changes? Has it been difficult on everybody and maybe they're just having a harder time adjusting and that could be what's impacting their performance? Um, and then I'd have to look at past experiences. Has this been something that they've faced in the past, or maybe, these situations are new to them and it's just hard for them to adjust? And if they did face them in the past, I'd have to review how they handled them, and maybe this can kind of help me understand, patterns in their behavior and then a better way to approach them. Then I need to seek additional information, gather more data. That would be, talking to people that work around them if, this is a deep rooted issue or maybe a more severe issue or something that really deemed it necessary to talk to other people to get a broader scope to understand what's going on. Maybe other supervisors or people that have worked with them longer or know them better. Um, and then also, like I said, the direct communication is probably the most, foundational, fundamental out of everything. You want to hear it from their side and you want to give them the opportunity to really open up to you and clarify, their perspective and hear it from them so there's no misunderstandings. Um, then you need to take into consideration whether this is a single incident or this is something that's a pattern of behavior, because everybody makes mistakes and we all deserve second chances depending on the severity of the situation. Um, and context is everything. So, we can't make judgments about their personality or their intentions. We have to take everything into consideration and see it from an objective perspective. And then, I need to make sure that I'm examining myself, making sure that I'm not being biased. And I need to challenge my assumptions, always questioning myself and always look for alternative explanations, try and see it from as many sides as possible. By doing all this, I can reduce the likelihood that I'm going to be biased or have fundamental attribution error. So for the third question, we're looking at positive reinforcement and three additional positive reinforcement methods that I believe would be the most effective in the workplace as a manager. And for me, the first one would be recognition. The second would be rewards, and the third is empowerment. And with recognition, it can be as simple as thank you or acknowledging them in front of other employees or maybe in one of the meetings, and just shouting out any type of achievements they've had or goals that that they've been working towards. It doesn't even have to be something specific. It can just be letting them know that you're noticing. In that case, I think maybe making it more specific would be more effective instead of just generalizing and giving them a broad type of compliment. But just letting them know that you have actually been taking notice, and by showing them that you are aware of a particular activity or procedure or tasks that they've been able to accomplish, that shows them that you're involved and willing to recognize them and keep up with them, and you want to be involved in their success. And I think that could be a powerful motivator, especially if it comes from somebody who's respected or from just a colleague in general. With rewards, it can be tangible or intangible. As a manager, you're limited to what you can do financially, but any type of reward that you can offer in the form of um, you know incentives, gift cards, bonuses. Um, I don't know if you'd have the ability for promotions, but if you did, at least maybe counseling and guidance and willingness to work with them one on one to see what you can do personally to help them achieve a promotion or put the word in and the referral in order for them to get to those promotion goals. Or you could work for them to be able to get additional vacation time or flexible work arrangements like the ability to work remotely on certain days, and just opportunities with you for professional development really shows that you're willing to mentor them, which could be definitely effective as a form of reward. And then empowerment was the big one for me, because by giving employees autonomy and responsibility, it can be highly motivating. This helps employees feel trusted and valued, and by having that internal sense of value and trust, that's an intrinsic motivation that's likely to lead them to be more engaged and productive. Taking ownership and accountability, for the progress that they're achieving and the product that they're creating. And that's why for me, positive or the most positive form of reinforcement would be empowerment. Because I think, with the autonomy to make decisions, I can take ownership of my work. And this way I feel more engaged. I'm able to be more creative and, feel more invested in my role. Maybe that's, because of my leanings towards entrepreneurship and wanting to be a leader. It's really a positive sense of fulfillment and purpose that being empowered gives me. Um, and I think also it boosts motivation. When employees feel trusted to make decisions, they're motivated to perform well, and they feel a sense of ownership, like I said. And, hopefully this leads to increased job satisfaction. It also encourages employees to think outside the box and come up with new ideas. When they have the autonomy to experiment and take risks, they're more likely to be innovative and come up with creative solutions to things they're working on. And then, it should enhance their development. Um, it can lead to increased skills and confidence, which is going to benefit them and the company as well. And hopefully it builds trust and collaboration, by showing them that you're willing to trust them and give them that autonomy. you know um, they can feel the trust and the sense of collaboration with you as a manager. and they'll feel like they're in a supportive work environment. So I think it's a win-win situation for both parties, managers and employees. And I think managers can create a more productive, innovative, and satisfying workplace by empowering the people that they're leading. So for the final question, with this apparently toxic work environment where managers regularly reprimand their direct reports in front of others, play favorites, and encourage coworkers to report one another. Um, Based on Bandura's social cognitive theory and the company culture, first, it's a good idea to know what Bandura's social cognitive theory is. From what I gather, that's when people learn by observing and imitating others. Monkey see, monkey do, as the old adage goes. And in this scenario, the company managers are obviously setting a pretty poor example, and therefore their employees would most likely model that negative behavior. They'd want to do the public reprimands, play favorites, and encourage others to report small mistakes. Pretty much throwing somebody else under the bus for them to get ahead, and this is gonna happen. Um, with any type of employee that feels like they have one up on somebody else, or just an employee trying to climb the ladder, finding the cheapest, easiest way to do it. So, like I said, I'm pretty positive this is going to create a toxic company culture, as it always does. It's going to create fear and distrust. Employees are going to fear making any mistakes because they might get publicly humiliated, so they'll be less willing to take any type of risk, and there's going to be a lack of trust, among everybody. Nobody's going to be able to speak openly or want to collaborate or think that they can trust anybody, and they'd rather preserve themselves than work as a team. Then you're going to see backstabbing and competition. Like I said, throwing people under the bus, creating a backstabbing environment where employees are more concerned with their own advancement than with team success, every man for themselves. And that in turn is going to lead to low morale and job satisfaction. um, it's people that are unhappy are obviously going to want to quit and find other jobs, so you're going to have an increased turnover. And a new employee in a company like this is obviously going to seek to get ahead, by adopting those behaviors and modeling those managers, thinking, well, if they got to that position, then obviously, I can do it too. And, I might as well do the same thing. Why rise above it when I could, do it the way that's obviously working? And the way they might, manifest these behaviors is by, you know, flattering themselves with superiors. They might try to gain favor by praising managers. Sucking up and agreeing with opinions even if they don't agree. They're going to engage in office politics, and they're going to avoid taking risks, and they're just going to kind of follow the line and not really think outside the box. Um, and in my opinion, I don't think that in the long run, these types of efforts to succeed are going to directly benefit company shareholders, because on the flip side, a healthy and productive company culture is essential for long-term success. You know, um, these type of behaviors are going to lead to decreased productivity. Fear, distrust, and competition can hinder employees' ability to work effectively together, which is going to lead to increased turnover. And high turnover rates are very costly for the company and disrupt operations. And then when this type of reputation gets out, within the industry, that reputation is going to be difficult to attract and retain any type of top talent. So honestly, I think that there is no benefit to this type of culture, and it's something that definitely needs to be rooted out and changed.